Have you ever wondered about the history of bilingualism and bilingual education? We are Claudia, Iro, and Claudia, and today we will see what conditions and factors have shaped global and local bilingual education. To get there, first we need to go back to the way modern language has been studied. To do this, we are going to summarize in very simple words years of language research based on the analysis made by Ofelia Garcia and Li Wei in the book Translanguaging, Language, Bilingualism, and Education. In the first half of the 20th century, Ferdinand de Saussure argued that language was our ability to use a system of signs to represent meaning. Later came Noam Chomsky, who focused his attention on the common characteristics of all languages and worked on something called universal grammar, arguing that every child is born with preset grammatical rules. Garcia then reminds us that both Saussure and Chomsky leave behind the context from their studies and presents Mikhail-Bakhtin's argument, who says that language is bound to the speaker's actions and context. This approach leads the way to the emergence of the concept of languaging, that Garcia defines as needed to refer to the simultaneous process of continuous becoming of ourselves and our language practices. It both shapes and it is shaped by context. In the post-structuralist perspective, the term languaging is well embraced and used by scholars of different fields, such as sociolinguistics and psycholinguistics. Although Garcia sees the importance of the addition of context in these approaches, she also emphasizes that when bilingualism and bilingual education are first approached, it is done through the lens of the structural perspective, so the acquisition of each language is visualized as separate, and where the skills in each language will also be measured and understood separately and subjected to independent proficiency. Garcia also mentions that later, literature debunks the concepts of bilingualism as two separate individual languages and presents the concept of dynamic bilingualism as complex practices of bilingual people, which leads to the introduction of the translanguaging theory, which, in her words, refers to new language practices that make visible the complexity of language exchanges among people with different histories. Having seen the big picture, let's now move on to a closer look at the bilingual education in our context.
Created using Powtoon.